I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your host, Jamie Jackson.
Hey lurkers, welcome to this week's episode. I am back from all of my traveling. I was in Wytheville, Virginia for the Wytheville UFO Festival on June 8th. It was a large festival. There were a good many people there. It was a good show, but it was not a good show for me personally. So probably won't go back to be a vendor there in the future. We did do a lot of sightseeing. My husband and I camped and we were able to visit the Grayson Highlands, and I was able to check out an overlook where there was a possible Bigfoot sighting. I did not see Bigfoot. I did hike part of the Appalachian Trail and I did get to see the wild ponies. It is absolutely gorgeous down there and I would definitely like to visit again. There are quite a few places to check out that have been featured on the Haunted Trail, Virginia, Part 1, including the overlook with the potential Bigfoot sighting. I'm pretty sure that was mentioned in Part 1. And then the following Saturday, on June 15th, I was at the Sasquatch Saturday event in Sykesville, Maryland. Also a good show. I did better at that show than I did at the Wytheville UFO Festival. I will say, one thing that I have noticed is that I would say I have quite a few people who listen who live within an hour and a half of the Sykesville area, and yet none of them came to the Sasquatch Saturday event. But when I drive 7 hours from home up to Whitehall, New York, I have all kinds of people who stop and say they listen to the podcast. So I'm just letting you know, Maryland, you are not representing very good. So thank you to those people who come out and say hey when I'm up in Whitehall. I apologize for not getting an episode out last Friday. However, it was crazy with the traveling home and preparing for another event just a few days after we got back. And then I was having technical difficulty. So fingers crossed we don't have any audio issues. I am in desperate need of a new computer that has a larger memory capacity. So let's all keep our fingers crossed that I can make this one last just a little bit longer. We need to get on with part 2 of the Haunted Trail in New York. Part 1 came out 2 weeks ago. You do not need to listen to that in order. You can listen to this first and then go back and listen to the other one. For those of you who might be new to the podcast and you haven't started from the beginning, the Haunted Trail is a collection of stories from along the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, or the Appalachian Trail, or sometimes just the AT. And also, when I was in southwestern Virginia, they say Appalachian. I kind of never used the word Appalachian because I didn't want to be looked at weird. Because up here we say Appalachian. Appalachian is the most correct way to say it. Either way is correct. Appalachian is the most accepted. The Appalachian Trail is a national hiking trail located in the eastern part of the United States that is 2,197.4 miles long. The distance changes now and then when new land is acquired to work around towns, highways, or other obstacles. I've been collecting these stories for several years, and I'm continuing to collect them. So if you've had a strange experience from an area near the Appalachian Trail, please let me know. The Appalachian Trail travels through 14 states: Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. We have covered stories from Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. So if you haven't listened to those, make sure you check them out. Each state stands on its own, so you don't need to listen to them in order. Last week, we stopped with a chilling encounter in Harriman State Park in New York, and today we're going to be picking up in the same park. Within Harriman State Park is Silvermine Lake. There's a story about a ship of Spaniards that sailed up the Hudson River and docked. The crew then took shovels and pickaxes and hiked up into the mountains. When they returned, they carried sacks full of silver. The ship returned again, and again the men went into the woods and came out with sacks of silver. They returned a third time. This time, 4 men went up the mountain, but only 2 returned. The locals in the area went looking around and came upon a cabin in the woods near a swamp. There they discovered the bodies of 2 of the Spaniards in the swamp. In the 1930s, the swamp became the man-made Silvermine Lake. The spirits of the 2 Spaniards haunt the area. Many have seen their ghosts roaming along the shoreline. Hunters see them in the woods, and hunting dogs are often spooked in that area. The next place is known as Doodletown, located in Bear Mountain State Park. Now nothing more than a ghost town, Doodletown was once home to miners and loggers from 1760s to the 1960s, when the last of the property was taken from its owners through eminent domain. The town was a crossroads for soldiers on both sides during the Revolutionary War. In 1903, there was an explosion at the Navy aluminum depot in the area, and 1 man from Doodletown was killed. His ghost is said to be trapped there. People have also claimed that the spirits of the men who died in the local mines haunt the area. And it's also said that the ghosts of those who were buried in the cemetery still roam around the town as if they're going about their daily life. Also in Bear Mountain State Park is Hessian Lake. In October 1777, the Redcoats, along with Hessian soldiers, fought against Patriots' artillery on the shores of what was then known as Sinapink Lake. More than 250 Hessian soldiers were killed in the fighting, and their bodies were just thrown in the lake. The lake then became known as Bloody Lake, and then Hessian Lake because it was said the water turned red with their blood. Now the ghosts of tall, pale Hessian soldiers wearing metal helmets and tall boots are seen charging into battle and roaming the shores of the lake. Some have also seen the ghost of a Hessian with missing limbs and glowing eyes. Swimming is not allowed in the lake, though 2 people attempted it in 2013, and both drowned for their efforts. The lake is spring-fed, but is said to drain constantly, creating a pool to the bottom. People claim that the pool is the spirits of the dead German mercenaries at the bottom of the lake. Past Hessian Lake, and beyond the town of Fort Clinton, is Popolopin Creek. Along the Popolopin Creek, there was once a whirlpool that was thought to be bottomless. During the Revolutionary War, 200 redcoats found their fate at Hell Hole, or Slaughter Hole as it's also known. More recently, there have been several fatalities from people swimming there illegally and drowning, and one instance where someone fell from the 29-foot rock wall that runs along the one side. Some say they see the spirits of the soldiers in the woods and hear splashing noises in the water when there's no one there. Fort Montgomery along the Hudson River and Popolopin Creek was the scene of a fierce Revolutionary War battle for control of the Hudson River. Visitors today can tour the remains of the 14-acre fortification perched on a cliff overlooking the magnificent Hudson River. On October 6, 1777, British Loyalist and Hessian forces attacked Fort Montgomery and nearby Fort Clinton. The defending American patriots, outnumbered 3-1, fought desperately until driven out of their forts at the points of the enemy bayonets. More than half of the Patriot forces were killed, wounded, or captured. Garrison House was built in 1751 by Isaac Garrison, who fought in the Revolutionary War and was captured by the British. The house, located in Fort Montgomery, was a stop for travelers both before and after the war, and Captain Molly Corbin, the first female veteran to receive a pension, was cared for in the house. She was injured so badly during the Revolutionary War that she never fully recovered from her wounds. After Corbin's husband, a cannon operator, was killed by enemy fire, Molly stepped in and took over his post, becoming a true war hero. People have claimed to have strong feelings of an overwhelming depression in areas of the house. Some have claimed to see the apparition of a man, others have heard voices, and still others have had the covers pulled off the bed in the middle of the night by unseen hands. There were recordings made in the home that captured sounds of a man's voice and a woman screaming. Nearby Fort Montgomery battlefield is the location of a Revolutionary War battle that took place here in 1771. Soldiers have been seen marching in the fields, and bodiless footsteps have been heard in the visitor center. There's also a strange feeling in the area. Bear Mountain Bridge crosses the Hudson River, connecting the area of Fort Montgomery and Anthony's Nose. But on the Hudson, the infamous pirate Captain Kidd and the ghost crew of the Adventure Galley haunt the waters beneath the bridge. It's said they are searching for lost treasure. There's also a story about the sad fate of some of Captain Kidd's crew. They were forced to draw straws, and those who chose the unlucky ones were killed. Their bodies were placed on the top of the treasure, and today their spirits still guard the gold. I know I've said it before in other episodes, I couldn't tell you which ones, but Captain Kidd seems to be in every place imaginable. His ghost is everywhere. And I don't understand how that can happen. If you have an idea, let me know. But it's like pieces of him were cut up and put in different places. He's all over the place. On the other side of the bridge is Anthony's Nose. Not literally, that's just what it's called. It's said that on Anthony's Nose lives an imp that causes problems for passing ships. If the passing crew does not pay their respects to the imp, he is capable of conjuring storms. Similarly, there is talk near Manitou of the spirits of all those who have drowned in the river since native times. They number in the thousands and are blamed for the rogue waves and sudden storms that pop up in that area. Also on the Hudson River is allegedly the ghost of the Flying Dutchman. Doomed to sail the oceans forever, the story of the ship called the Flying Dutchman originated in the 18th century. There were repeated sightings in both the 19th and 20th centuries. Those who have seen the ghostly ship say it glows with an eerie light, and the chanting of the crew can be heard as they go about their duties on board. Many believe that seeing the ship is a bad omen. The Flying Dutchman is allowed to dock every 7 years, and one location this happens seems to be the Hudson River. People have claimed to have seen the ghostly ship sailing up the Hudson, especially on dark nights before a gale. We actually covered the story of the Flying Dutchman in episode 116 if you're interested in hearing more about the doomed ship. This area is also known for stories about Mad Anthony Wayne. Anthony Wayne was a brigadier general during the Revolutionary War. His devil-may-care attitude and fiery personality earned him the Mad moniker. It's said that his ghost haunts the river valley as he looks for enemy ships. There's also talk of a ghostly horse and rider who replay a daring scene over and over again. Mad Anthony Wayne is seen riding his horse Nancy around midnight. The two race as though the devil himself is chasing them. Sparks fly off the ghost horse's hooves, and they gallop to alert the patriots of the British troops' approach. But that isn't the only ghostly tale about Mad Anthony. His is a busy ghost, and his body is actually buried in 2 separate locations, though neither is near the Appalachian Trail. It makes for a creepy story. After his death and burial, Mad Anthony's son traveled to retrieve his body and have it reinterred near his home. When the son opened the casket, he realized that the box he had to transport the body was not big enough. Somehow, he needed to make the body smaller. He then proceeded to boil the flesh from the bones. The flesh was left in the original casket and reburied, while the bones were placed in the box and taken back to his hometown. However, it's said that something happened along the way, and some of the bones were lost along the trip. Every January 1st, the ghost of Mad Anthony Wayne searches the highway looking for his missing bones. The next area is Harriman State Park, and within the park is an area known as Kent Cliffs. Along the cliffs of the state park stand mysterious stone chambers. The chambers are well made and uniform with no markings. The origins of the chambers are unknown, though some believe they are the work of the Druids. The chambers have a strange magnetic anomaly associated with them. Some researchers believe, through the use of magnetometers, that a magnet was purposefully placed at the threshold of each chamber. Though the exact reason is unknown, speculation suggests it's either to protect them from evil spirits or for the use of magic. People have reported disorientation and extreme dizziness after spending time inside a chamber, and others have reported feeling like someone is watching them when they stand with their back to the entrance. There have been other paranormal events in the area. Ghostly figures have been seen near the chambers along with cloaked figures and even gray aliens. One ghost is said to have glowing red eyes, and others are described as dwarf-like cloaked creatures that move around the stone chambers. There are stories about people disappearing after entering the stone chambers, and even one in which a woman disappears for 2 years and then suddenly reappears. It reminds me a little bit of the man-eating rock in Vermont in the Bennington Triangle. Perhaps there is a place in the Bennington Triangle with a similar magnetic anomaly. Good theory, if I say so myself. In Native American lore of the area, there is a ghost or monster they call the Flying Head. It's said to be taller than a man when resting on the ground and is covered with thick black hair. It has bat-like wings and talons. The Native Americans believe it is conjured during a violent murder. The severed head of a victim grows or the head emerges from a mass grave. Others believe that the head is a human who has been transformed after committing an act of cannibalism. The sole purpose of the head is to pursue and eat humans. The head flies through the air, chasing its prey before pouncing and devouring them. Another local Native American legend is that of the mummified arm. The legend of a monster called the Oniate or Dry Fingers is a disembodied mummified arm, a type of boogeyman, if you will, that appears in deserted areas to terrorize people. It is a vengeful apparition that seeks to punish bad people. The arm can fly, and if you're unlucky enough to be touched by it, you will be killed, die from a disease, or be struck blind. There are also beings called stone throwers. Jungis or Joga are a race of small humanoids similar to dwarves or pygmies that live in the woods. They are invisible most of the time, but sometimes reveal themselves, especially to children, elders, or medicine people. They are said to be knee-high and like to play tricks such as throwing stones at people. They are dangerous to those who disrespect them or their natural home. They are mostly friendly, especially to anyone who thinks to leave tobacco or other gifts for them, which sounds an awful lot like a pukwudgie. So, as you pass through the woods in New York, make sure you respect the environment and perhaps leave a little gift for the Jungis. It's interesting how there are so many Native American legends about small people. Pukwudgies, Jungies, Nunahai, there's several of them. If you aren't a believer in the paranormal, the fact that so many different tribes had similar creatures in their lore should account for something. Another legend is known as Stonecoat. Stonecoat is a rock giant twice as tall as any human, whose body is covered in rock-hard scales. This giant hunts and eats humans. Some think the rock giants are humans, who transformed into the cannibalistic monsters as part of a curse or punishment for evil deeds. Another is the naked bear. The naked bear is a creature that is known to be a man-eater. It looks like a bear, but without its fur, and it has an enormous head. It has bright red eyes and long razor-sharp fangs. Its fur is said to fall out because it eats so much human flesh. The monster is nearly invincible and can only be killed by shooting arrows into the soles of its feet. There's a lot of scary Native American legends in New York. Keep an eye out. Before we leave the state of New York, there is a lake called Nuclear Lake. Nuclear Lake is the site of a small laboratory that was run by United Nuclear Corporation. Built in 1958, it was privately run and licensed by the government to work with weapons-grade uranium and plutonium. It had a critical building where tests were conducted. In 1972, a chemical explosion released plutonium dust into the air, and the facility was closed in 1973. Inspection of the UNC's records raised fears that they were dumping radioactive waste into the lake. A cleanup in 1975 deemed the site safe. The Appalachian Trail is about 1,200 feet from the lake's area. While the trail area has been determined to be safe and free of radioactive material, I wouldn't recommend going for a swim or drinking any water anywhere near that area. Personally, I would not do it. And if the thought of a radioactive lake wasn't scary enough, there are also some mysterious sightings of a Bigfoot creature and possibly some ghosts. Bigfoot sightings have been reported in the area of the lake. People have claimed to feel as though something is following them in the trees, but when they turn their head to look, whatever it is darts behind the trees and stays just out of sight. Tree and rock knockings, which are common in Bigfoot encounters, have been heard. Trees have also been snapped off and twisted at a height of about 7 feet. There are also shadowy figures seen running between the trees. And that's going to do it for the state of New York and for this episode of Lurk. Next up, we will be in Connecticut when we hit the trail again. Remember, you can find Lurk wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or on all the major ones like Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, and most of the minor ones. You can also find all of the episodes along with social media links on the website at lurkpodcast.com. If you have an interesting paranormal hiking story to share, please send it to me at lurkpodcast@yahoo.com. I'm working on collecting stories from other hiking areas, so if you have one, send it along. It doesn't have to just be from the Appalachian Trail. If you like what you hear, please tell your friends and consider giving us a 5-star review. And until next time, keep lurking.